And away we go. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you happen to be in the world today. Welcome, one and all, ladies and gentlemen, to Coffee Talk, where we will be having a discussion about what is going on in the world today, taking a look at some news articles, reading through some articles, having some discussion, so on and so forth. And of course, this is live on YouTube at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Monday through Friday. So you can find me at Coffee Talk Live on YouTube, as well as Prepper University on YouTube, or at Coffee Talk Chat on X, formerly known as Twitter, and fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. and Eastern Standard Time, and Friday at noon. As we say hello to Dusty here, for those of you who can see, I've got Dusty, the adopted cat. And for those of you who can't see, naturally, I will read through as many of the comments in the live portion as is reasonable, so that you can keep up with the conversation and what people are saying. And I'll go ahead and greet some of the people that have chimed in so far. We have, who do we have? We have Helter. We have Delo. We have Donna, who reminds everyone to please hit the thumbs up. So please do if you don't mind. We have Keisha's here. Dragon. Caleb, he says, Cat is in total relaxing mode. Yeah, she's very user-friendly, as it were. She's very easy to manage. Brian is here. Ragnar Thorshammer. And Brian says, new camera. No, it's the same camera. I just moved the light. I moved the light over. Is it working better? Velvet Pilot is here, and DH is here, and they made a $4.99 donation to the channel. It says, support the channel, feed the cats, love your content. Much appreciated, DH. Thank you very much. And yeah, we do have our own like impromptu animal shelter going. We take care of a lot of cats. We work with the Halo House, which is a local shelter for dogs, actually, as well as a local veterinarian. And we try to do our best we can to help them, including Dusty, who really doesn't look like she needs much help, does she? But thanks again, DH. Boogers is here. Urban Angst. And yeah, and Brian again. Brian says, cool. Okay, yeah, I guess moving the light helped. So there we go, as we get ready to jump into whatever is going on in the news today. And Semper Fi says, did you see the news article from new scientists talking about the upcoming electricity shortage in the U.S. for 2024? I did not see that. But it doesn't surprise me if they're going to keep trying to cut back on coal, which makes up for about 80% of the electric generation in the United States. Wind power, hydroelectric, and nuclear is only less than 20%. So, yeah, that wouldn't surprise me if they're trying to move away from that and force everything to be electric at the same time. It's going to clash. And Armored says 2024, the Coffee Talk era continues. Maybe. And Semper says, am I allowed to post the link? You can try, but YouTube sometimes blocks links. So, you can try it, but we'll see what YouTube decides to do. What do you think they're going to do, sweetie? We'll see what happens. Dusty doesn't know. Dusty doesn't know much. That's okay. And All People is here. Glad you could make it as we get ready to jump into the news. Also, I posted a short with a question. So if anybody is interested, and it shows the charging station at the VA, because you never see a phone on that courtesy charging station at the VA hospital. And the reason for that is a lot of people are paranoid that it steals data out of the phone. So I did a short asking the question, do you believe that the VA steals data from your phone when you plug it in? At the VA hospital, that is. So if you're curious about that, please do check that short out. And I see Chris is here, and they said that they made it. And Armin says, should the regular work week be 4-10 hours instead of 5-8 hours? It depends on if you want to work a 10-hour shift, because remember, a 10-hour shift isn't really 10 hours. You have to count travel time and prep time, right? So it depends on how much of your day you want to allow to be eaten up. And ARN says Canada had to import electricity the other day. California is making tap water out of human waste. Yeah, well, that's recycling. That's recycling, ARN. But speaking of fact checking, and this one kind of surprised me that the way that this direction went. I'll go ahead and open this up. And it has to do with the airports. And we've talked about this before. And this particular article comes from the State of the Union. And it says, fact check, Biden administration claims illegal aliens are vetted before boarding flights. Because as you know, the U.S. government has been paying for a lot of people to fly into the United States for free or to get plane tickets to fly to other parts of the country. And the taxpayer is footing the bill. So here we go. A report from the O'Keefe Media Group challenged the Biden administration's assertion that illegal aliens are adequately vetted before flown into various U.S. destinations. James O'Keefe's investigation at the Phoenix airport revealed thousands of illegal aliens arriving daily, with one migrant seeking help to print a boarding pass for a flight to New York City. The report suggests the current vetting procedures are extremely inadequate, relying solely on the individual's word. Government claims it is these individuals before putting them on planes, but our reporting and numerous tips from insiders contradict that. O'Keefe wrote. What we found is that the agents responsible for vetting the identification of these individuals are relying solely on their word. You and I could not travel without showing our IDs numerous times and taking off our shoes, but these supposed refugees, as they're calling them, face none of that scrutiny or face any security. Arizona, particularly overwhelmed by the surge, has seen its governor deploy National Guard troops to address the situation. Yet again, the federal government is refusing to do its job to secure our border and keep our communities safe, Arizona's Governor Katie Hobbs stated. With this executive order, I will be taking action where the federal government won't. The Lukeville border crossing is processing around 2,500 migrants daily, mainly from Africa and Asia. So, fact check, they're not checking these people at the airport. They're just letting them go on the flights. So what the hell? What the hell do we have the TSA for then? To harass us? To make you take off your shoes and your belt? To make you stand there and get searched when the machine screws up? Is that why they're doing it? What the hell is the TSA for? When people who don't even have to identify themselves can just waltz in and out of the country without being checked. They may as well not be there. Spectre said T-Mobile's doing some effed up thing. They will be watching what you text regardless who it is and will fine you if you say the wrong things. This is starting next year. I've heard some rumors about that. I'm going to look for an article on it. Armid says the human waste was brought to you by Pfizer. Yeah, that means there's a lot of medications mixed in it. And Urban says surely they're vetted to make sure they will vote Democrat. And Armid says fake check comrade. And Blue Battery says one way to destroy a country is to flood it with foreigners. That's true. And Armid says America is becoming Brazil #2. Semper Fi says it's infuriating. I wonder how many people are aware that the VA is giving these refugees free medical and dental care. And they actually are, because we read an article about it a couple of weeks ago. And Keisha said rules for me and not for thee. And Urban said plenty of 50s science fictions feature a dystopian future world where identity is a hotly traded commodity and where fake documents are more effective than real documents and citizens replaced. And I see Henry Bowman and says the TSA is for looting our luggage. Yeah, they steal all your bottles of shampoo. And Merv says to give us a false sense of security, and that's they're doing their job. A lot of comments on that. Sean says, hi, everyone. Oh, from Northern Illinois. Glad you could make it, Sean. Armid says, what do people do in Nebraska? I don't know. And Chevron Noir, did I pronounce that correctly, is joining us here today. And ARN says a C virus positive tested migrants are being flown for free. Are they being tested? Are they being tested? I don't know. I don't want to know. I don't know. But you know, there are people that want them to flood into the country. They like this. They like the idea of these people flying across the border. Ask the Daily Beast. Look at this article. Do you want to solve the border crisis? Legalize immigration. Republicans won't pass aid to Ukraine without so-called border deal. And although Democrats don't agree on how to do it, they have already agreed with the Republicans' restrictionist goal to let fewer people into America. But nearly everything that politicians now use to justify immigration restriction can be traced to the restrictionist policies already in force. In other words, immigration restrictionists, that's a new term. Immigration restrictionists, making it sound like it's a bad idea that you think there needs to be control at the border. Create the problems and then demand ever more restrictions to fix them. Lather, rinse, and repeat. Government does do that, but is that the case here? The main problem, they assert, is simply that people keep entering the country illegally. An inquisitive person might ask, why don't they come legally? The answer is quite simple. Legal immigration is impossible for them. And get a load of this. This is someone who doesn't do their homework. There is no path other than requesting asylum at the border that is available to the people who are coming up through Mexico to the United States. If ending illegal immigration was the goal, the government could simply let them come legally. Well, they are letting them come legally because the Biden administration, when he took office, signed it as an order that they could not be repatriated. So come one, come all. We used to try to send them back. We used to put them on flights. We used to put them on buses and get them away from the border. Now we're not allowed to do that anymore. So since the government is allowing it, it is legal, number one. Number two, they're equivocating here a little bit. They're saying that people keep entering the country illegally. All right, where is it? The answer is quite simple. Legal immigration is impossible for them. There is no path other than requesting asylum at the border that is available to the people who are coming up through Mexico to the United States. Correct. If you're walking up to the border, the only option you have is to ask for asylum and either be granted or rejected, or that's how it's supposed to be. But because they don't specify, it's implying that that's the only way to get into the country. And that's not true, because you could be here with a work visa or a study visa and petition for citizenship and probably get it. You know, the article is very one-sided, but there are people, and including those pandering in this article. Who wrote this article? David Beer wrote this article, pandering to the idea of opening the floodgates even further and allowing even more people to pour into the country unchecked and unvetted. Urban says, I should mention much of that fiction was Russian under the Soviets. It's almost like they knew what communism can accomplish. Yeah. And Bingo is here. Glad you could join us. Merv says, hopefully this is clear to give us a false sense of security where we're being invaded. And Urban says they don't come legally because, drum roll please, they don't have to. Yeah, they don't have to. Opening the border up like that made it legal for everyone. Just walk across the border and don't worry about it. We'll take care of you. We'll take really, really good care of you. We'll take really good care of you. How much of a good care are we going to take? How much are we going to take? How about to the tune of $451 billion this year, according to this? And this is the Independent News. Accommodating illegal migrants is costing American taxpayers $451 billion, and ex-users say it's cheaper to build a wall. Well, it would be cheaper to build a wall, and it would be cheaper to fly them back to where they came from. And I've said that 100 times. But here we go. The controversial topic about building walls in the southern part of the United States in order to control the amount of illegals coming into the country has been around since the Trump administration. It's been around longer than that. Furthermore, ex-users, because God knows they all know what they're talking about, speculate that it would have been much cheaper for the American people to simply just build the wall. No, again, it'd be cheaper to charter them on flights back to their countries of origin, as was pointed out in the previous article. The majority of people coming across are from Africa and the Middle East. How'd they get in South America? According to the Daily Mail, in November, taxpayers bear nearly $500 billion yearly to unchecked migration per House Republicans. The report cites expenses totaling up to $451 billion, covering education, healthcare, and law enforcement, attributing to these costs to the millions of incoming migrants. Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas faces impeachment, accused of failing to curb the surge at the U.S.-Mexico border. Republican claims link this migration wave to immense financial burdens on the government and citizens. Why is Mayorkas facing impeachment when he's been ordered to stand down and let them through? He can't reject them if the federal government orders him to suck it up. So he doesn't deserve impeachment. He's not being allowed to do his job. Furthermore, $451 billion, I'll tell you right now, it's not accurate, because they said that $451 billion is a projection yearly cost based on education, healthcare, and law enforcement. However, we're paying for a lot more than that. We're paying for transportation. We're paying for food and lodging. How much does that come to? As well as other programs. How much does that come to? It's probably nearly double. How much is it really costing the United States every year? I would bet probably damn near $1 trillion. Taxpayer money. For people that don't even appreciate it. Came here for a handout and took it. Not all of them. There are some people that truly are looking for asylum. There are some people who truly want to work and want to participate. Not all of them. No, some of them are throwing those meals away. Some of them are going door to door begging. We've read the articles. They're throwing away the meals. They don't want to stay in the shelters. They're complaining about the hotels. You're in there for free. Put me in a hotel for free so I don't have to pay rent or mortgage. How about that? How about that? Semper says we are being invaded. The Constitution is clear. Section 4, Article 4 says the federal government shall protect each of the states against invasion. Yeah, it is an invasion. Urban says, I have yet to hear a serious mainstream discussion on Mexico's role in the border fiasco. How is Mexico allowing illegal migrants into their country? More importantly, why? Because they know they ain't staying there. This is a way, I forget who it was, but this was about a month ago. We read an article on that many of these South American countries, they view the migration as a form of weaponization against the United States as a way to get revenge for meddling in their politics. Oh, all these people want to go to the U.S. Here, walk through our country. Good luck, is the attitude. So those migrations and those caravans are being weaponized against the United States. And Mexico is no different. Mexico is no different. Especially not if we are not going to go after them. Trump administration would have gone after them. Hell, even the Obama administration would have gone after these southern governments. But the Biden administration is not going to. Rodney says, I suspect that even if the DJT manages to overcome the corrupt deep state and win in 2024, the bureaucracy will limit how much he can un-F the U.S. Yeah, it's going to be hard to undo. It's harder to build something than it is to destroy it, and we're being destroyed. How are you going to fix it, and who's going to do it, and how long is that going to take? It goes with anything. You can tear a building down before you can build it up. You can ruin your body before you can build it back to health. and you can destroy a country's infrastructure and its culture before you can repair it. Semperfi says, heard a news story today regarding Mexico will help with immigration into the U.S. if they forgive debt to certain South American countries. And then Urban says maybe Mexico should be cut out of the USMCA free trade deal currently active after Trump improved on NAFTA. Yeah, that goes all the way back to the Clinton administration. He started that mess. And then, but the bill had come up a few times and had been rejected by previous presidents. And yeah, Clinton is the one that initiated it in the first place. It's a huge mistake. We're still suffering for it. He's also the one that allowed for banks to run on a national function rather than regional, which led to the housing market crash. But yeah, according to them, again, for education, healthcare, and law enforcement, $451 billion a year. I beg to differ. I believe it's nearly twice as much because we have to talk, and mostly it's being footed by state governments rather than federal. But food and lodging alone, and transportation. Yeah, I didn't see transportation in there. What about all these free airline tickets? What about the rumors that were confirmed by that one Texas sheriff, I forget his name, saying that these people are being given bags that are little gift bags that have like a $5,000 Visa card and airline tickets? Who's paying for that? Where's that coming from? I want a $5,000 Visa card. Where's mine? Can I get one? Send me a $5,000 Visa card. Oh my God. And it's going to get more expensive because there are more things they're trying to tack onto the bill. And it's starting in New York, of course. New York is trying to set a precedence. Tax dollars at work. And this is an article from the New York Post. Your tax dollars are paying for the rights for migrants. Legal scam. And it goes on to say, as a record number of migrants invade the United States, wreaking pain on New York City and other communities, one group is winning big time: the public advocacy lawyers. Their business is to constantly sue to win more so-called rights for migrants: right to shelter, right to meals, right to health care, and even the right to vote in local elections, which they have been trying to push in both New York and Massachusetts. Who pays the bills on both sides of these lawsuits? You do. That's true. Taxpayer money largely funds these legal combatants, which include the Coalition for the Homeless, the Legal Aid Society, and the Vera Institute of Justice. You're paying to be legally coerced into providing more for migrants, even at the cost of cutting vital city services. It's absurd, but it is about to get worse. The New York City Council this month passed Resolution 556, calling on the state legislature to guarantee as a right that all migrants have lawyers paid for by taxpayers when they go to immigration court. It would be a first in the nation guarantee. Resolution 556 would give migrants more rights than American citizens have. They already got them. No one else is guaranteed a publicly funded lawyer in civil court matters such as housing, court issues, or divorce. About 50 people, including unions, are elected officials, gather in Lower Manhattan to protest the 5% budget cuts in education due to the ongoing migrant crisis. Paul Martinka, yikes. The city council proposal would make the Big Apple even more of a magnet for migrants than it already is. Who's behind the push? The Vera Institute of Justice. Vera claims we need a federally funded universal legal defense service for migrants. In short, a national army of left-wing lawyers paid for by you. And what better place to launch this lunatic idea than at the New York City Council? The Vera Institute is not the only organization cashing in on the migrant rights. Yeah, it is the migrant industrial complex. That's what this is a reflection of. They have all these advocacy groups that used to pretend to stand up for Joe average citizen, now pretends to stand up for migrants so that they can get a fatter paycheck. Never trust advocates. It says Mayor Eric Adams went to court months ago for temporary relief from the rigid rules and settlements that define what the city must provide the homeless as tens of thousands of homeless migrants arrive. Immediately, the Legal Aid Society and the Coalition for the Homeless swooped in, claiming his plan would gut the homeless' long-standing rights. These lawsuits are largely funded by you through grants and contracts from the city and the state. And another thing, they don't mention it here, of course, that if they win those lawsuits and there's a payout, that payout comes from tax dollars. It's not like there's an individual getting sued. The city's getting sued, and their money comes from you ultimately. As we catch up some of the comments here. Urban says anyone can see it's an army and they're in the U.S. to enlist and be given their kit and caboodle. And Urban says enlist in the Democratic Party, that is. It's not just the United States, of course, it's every Western nation. Every Western nation is being invaded this way. And I see Cross Country Casper is here. It says Happy New Year. Glad you could make it, Cross Country. And Dragon says it will be coming out of everybody's paycheck they earn through employment, while the migrants can't work. The migrants can't work. And even when you give them a work permit, they can't find work because there isn't any. There isn't any. There's no jobs for them. That's why all those Venezuelans, and I've been talking about that the last few days, all those Venezuelans who got work permits are leaving. They're going back to Venezuela. How bad is that? How bad is that they want to go back to a country like Venezuela because they realize there's nothing for them here? Oh, so we don't have enough jobs, but we're bringing people in. We don't have enough houses or space for them. We don't have any room to rent, no vacancy, but we're bringing them in. And they want to complain about it. But a sweet old, dear old, lovable old, reliable old, honest old Uncle Joe has a solution. He has a solution for the housing crisis. We don't have anywhere to put these migrants. We're going to build a house for them with your tax dollars. MoneyWise has this article. We must do more. Biden administration wants to build 500,000 starter homes to fix America's affordable housing crisis. But will this be enough? That's too much. That's too much. They want to build 500,000 houses. You wouldn't need all those houses if we didn't have a couple of million people a year pouring over our border. This past year was the least affordable year for home buying on record, according to real estate giant Redfin, and it has caused the blood pressure in Washington to rise. A U.S. home buyer with a median income of $78,642 in 2023 would have to spend a record 41.4% of their earnings on housing costs in 2023, up from 39% in 2022 and 31% in 2021. Why did those all go up? Because of the lockdowns. That's government's fault. That's government's fault. A perfect storm of inflation, high prices, soaring mortgage rates, and low housing supply caused 2023 to go down as the least affordable year for housing in recent history, said Redfin senior economist Elijah De La Campa. The housing affordability crisis has grown so significant that commentators think it could be a big topic in the 2024 presidential election. President Joe Biden is clearly alert to the issue and its potential importance. He has backed several affordable housing bills and action plans in 2023, including the Neighborhood Homes Investment Act, which would produce 500,000 starter homes in under-resourced communities over the next decade. Basically townhouses in projects. That's, just call it what it is. You're going to build those townhouses or those row house flats in low-income project communities, because we've seen tons of those around the country. But will this be enough to fix the problem and appease American home buyers? No, it will not. No, it will not. If there isn't enough real estate to go around, which I don't see how, because all I see are housing developments all over the damn place. They can't leave a tree growing anywhere, even in Georgia. Every time I turn around, there's houses going up, and it's almost always townhouses, and from the low 300,000s, and they build them out of shit. They use the cheapest possible building materials, so they're not going to be well kept, and they're not going to last. Plus, they're expensive. And they're going to throw how much money to these programs to build affordable houses to accommodate who? Because we wouldn't be looking for real estate if the country wasn't being flooded with people that we can't accommodate, that we don't have room for, and we don't have money for, and that we don't have jobs for. Spectre says, just imagine the vast corporation with all these countries to do what they are doing to the mass population of the world. And Brian says, Venezuela was a stable country until socialism ruined it. That's true. And Henry said 500,000 houses. Yeah, okay, the government can't even launch a website. Yeah, I see your point. And this is, again, another attempt at coercion for a vote. Oh, yeah, I understand there's a housing crisis. I'm going to build you a house. The government's going to take care of you. The government's going to take care of you. Yeah. People make fun of religious folks for believing in a so-called imaginary friend. Oh, you're praying. You're talking to your imaginary friend. You're waiting for a savior to come and save you. I would rather wait for a God to come and save me than a government. Oh, man. Unbelievable. Helter says a huge part of our housing inflation is the fact that corporate entities are purchasing many homes as long-term investments, putting them in the hands of management companies and renting them out. That's been happening a lot too. That has happened a lot. But still, an extra 2 million people a year coming across the border looking for a place to stay isn't helping the situation. It's really not. They need to go back where they came from. Please. But what are you going to do? What are you going to do? And like I said, you see those housing projects going up all over the place. Every time I turn around, and I worry about them getting closer and closer. There was a famous, or maybe not so famous, Disney short called The Little House, I think was the title of it, The Little House. And it's a little house in the country. And the city every year gets closer and closer and closer and closer until the house is crowded out and falls apart and is abandoned. And then somebody lifts the house out and puts it on a truck and moves it out to the country again at the end of the short, so that the house doesn't just die, because the house is anamorphosized, so it looks like it's alive. And it'll break your heart to just see the house getting crushed out by all the buildings. But that's what happens. The city will come to you. It inches up on you and it inches up on you, but it leaves decay behind. Abandoned neighborhoods, abandoned shopping centers that are falling apart that nobody wants to renovate because the taxes are too high. It's cheaper to find a new plot of land, negotiate a brand new deal with the city, get a tax break, and build there than it is to renovate an existing area that you can't negotiate anything with the city council with, that you can't get a tax deal on because they're going to screw you because it's already established. Because we have plenty of space. There's a lot of vacancies out there, a lot of dilapidated buildings and vacant parking lots. I see vacant parking lots and empty shopping centers all over the place in Georgia. So why are you tearing down a forested area and putting brand new developments on there when you've got abandoned areas over here? And Frankie says, we are the government and we're here to help. Yeah, that's Ronald Reagan right there. And Henry says, Detroit is a classic example of decay. Yeah, and nobody wants to develop on it. You know, if there was a proper incentive for a developer to come in and renovate, they might do it. But the city council will rip them off, and they know it. So they don't want to come. They don't want to come. And Urban says Vancouver, British Columbia pretends it's doing something about the absentee foreign condo owners. Retail spaces on the first floor are losing businesses because no one is there. Dark towers at night. You see that in a lot of urban areas now too. And why have all that power going? Why have all that electricity running and nobody is in the building? And then you end up with a dilapidated building. Again, if you're not renting it, all you're doing is paying taxes on it and paying utilities, and eventually you can't pay it. And then the city confiscates the property and sells it in a sheriff's sale if there's any buyers for it, depending upon how bad the neighborhood is. You know, we talked about that a little bit yesterday with Philadelphia, the city of Philadelphia, complaining that one of the reasons why the city is so broke is because they're not able to confiscate and sell at sheriff's sales as many properties as they think they deserve to. Okay, so you have an entire economic plan based around screwing your constituents out of their homes and businesses and selling it at public auction for pennies on the dollar. And then had the nerve, again, you know, rehashing the article a little bit, had the nerve to suggest that that's the primary function of a sheriff's office, is to throw people out of their homes and sell their houses. Sheriff of Nottingham, maybe. I don't even know what to say about that. I mean, I know Philadelphia is a corrupt city, but damn. And to say it publicly, too, the mayor, that's incredible. That's incredible. That takes some coconuts, I'll tell you what, to basically admit that that your primary source of income is screwing over your constituents. If you're not getting them with tickets, you're getting them with taxes. Is that the idea? There's a lot to think about there. There really is. But I, for one, am sick and tired of seeing new developments. Tired of it. Let some trees grow somewhere, for God's sake. We are not good stewards of this planet. That's the one thing. I don't trust environmentalists and I do not trust activists, but I do believe people should be better stewards of the earth and better stewards of their property and better stewards of their environment. I just don't believe that you can trust any activist, any environmentalist, or any politician to officiate any of that, because they're just corrupt. They're corrupt and they're dishonest, and I don't think they care about the environment half as much as they say they do, if at all. And it's not just a way for them to make money, a way for them to earn income. That's their angle. I think of Sam Kinison, before I get into the next article. I think I've mentioned this before. If anybody's ever seen, some of you might remember Sam Kinison. He was big in the 80s until he died in an auto accident. And he was mouthy. He could be kind of vulgar. He wasn't as bad as some, but he could be kind of vulgar. And I've seen him once in the 80s. And he had this thing that he did where he's got this projection screen on stage. And on the screen is this kid. He's like 4 or 5 years old in a little white suit, and he's preaching. And Sam says, "That's me. That's me. My father was a televangelist." And so I'm up on there thumping the Bible and preaching and passing the plate. And the reason that he shows it is to warn people about what a fraud most of them are, because evidently his father didn't believe in a damn thing, but it paid the bills. I think about that whenever I look at some of these huge preachers, pastors, ministers like Joel Osteen or Creflo Dollar or Joyce Myers or T.D. Jakes or any of these guys. And people look at them and they're like, "Oh, that's crazy. They're completely misunderstand that portion of the Bible, or they don't, you know what? No, maybe you're giving them too much credit. Maybe they don't believe any of that at all, but it pays the bills." That's how I feel about most activists. There's a couple of comments here real quick. Urban says the left will get your stuff by any means necessary. It looks that way, doesn't it? And Frankie says, sounds like they took a page out of J.D. Hogg's playbook. Jefferson Davis already owns the whole neighborhood, though. Your county commissioner, Jefferson Davis Hogg. And he was always threatening to fire Roscoe, but Roscoe was an elected official. Donna says fixing housing up will do no good without jobs for people to work. Oh, they'll replace those. They get robots that can do drywall now. I think I showed that in one of a video like a year ago. They're replacing a lot of those jobs as we move around here. And this comes from the Wall Street Journal. Bus stations across America are closing, and they're talking about cross-country buses. Chicago, each year, about 500,000 pass through Chicago's Greyhound bus station at all hours. There is climate-controlled waiting areas with bathrooms, security guards, and a snack bar, and about 36 arrivals and departures every day. They mean buses. Those passengers could soon be out in the cold. The station's owner, affiliate of hedge fund Alden Global Capital, has put it on the market. The 87,000 square foot property in the rapidly developing West Loop could fetch more than $30 million. The potential closure highlights a plight confronting millions of travelers, many on lower incomes, that attracts far less attention than passengers on rail or aviation. Intercity bus stations are closing throughout the country. At least 8 cities have lost their stations so far, including Philadelphia, Ohio's Columbia, and Tampa, Florida. Passengers have had to wait on street corners and parking lots, causing tensions with local officials. Greyhound's owner, a German bus operator Felix, wants cities to help fund new facilities. Local officials say that this is the company's responsibility. So they want state funding to help build new terminals, and the states are like, nah, screw you. Chicago would be the largest city to lose a terminal. It isn't clear where passengers would have to wait. Years of declining ridership and company missteps have dragged down the fortunes of Greyhound, a centuries-old icon of the American road. Its former owner sold its stations to raise cash. Many in desirable downtown locations are worth more as something else, such as apartments or entertainment centers. For now, Greyhound is leasing back the stations that remain open. Intercity bus travel isn't federally regulated and attracts less attention and public funding than passenger rail or air travel. Nonetheless, it plays a vital role for passengers who need cheap transportation or who are traveling to places with no air or train service. A 2016 DePaul University study put the number of bus riders at around 62 million a year. That is 62 million, roughly twice that of Amtrak. Greyhound, the country's largest operator, carried about a third of those. So that's another industry going bust. That's another piece of Americana fading away. The whole cross-country bus thing. But that's been fading away for decades, quite frankly. It's been going away for decades. Again, that is a piece of Americana that we could see disappear in our lifetime. as fewer and fewer people, if they don't have anywhere to let these people off or pick them up, it's going to get to be a bigger and bigger problem, because you can't just pick them up and drop them off any old damn place. There has to be a designated location. And I have rode Greyhound and Peter Pan way back in the day, like in the 90s. I've done that a couple of times. And there are some big bus terminals, including a huge one in New York that goes underground. And one of the drop-off points was like a parking lot. Sometimes they use like a mall parking lot or something like that. It's just convenient. But there's only so much of that you can do. You can't accommodate 62 million people a year picking them up and dropping them off in parking lots. And yeah, I get it. It's worth more to sell the land and let them do something else with it. But it's just, it's sad to see that fade away. Also, again, the buses are not federally regulated. Trains and airlines are. So there's a lot more scrutiny getting in and out of a cross-country train or obviously an aircraft than you would have to deal with riding the bus. Some people don't want to be pestered like that. I don't want to go to the airport. It's a headache. Urban says Canada lost its Greyhound some years ago. In British Columbia, there are now regional runs with E-Bus and Rider Express. So far, I've not heard of any issues with stations. And that in Cuba, there is a law that anyone with a car must pick up people waiting at bus stations whenever possible. If not for that, many would not be able to get to work because not enough buses and gas. Yeah. Well, Cuba was America's best friend until Castro. Cuba was on and popping until Castro, and then his connection with the USSR at the time created that embargo, because naturally you don't want a Soviet military or naval base 3 miles from Florida. That's the closest the Earth has ever been to an actual nuclear encounter. Hiroshima and Nagasaki notwithstanding. But yeah, that's the closest we ever came to somebody might press the button was during that embargo. But yeah, it's a shame to see that fading away. It's a shame to see that fading away. There's so many aspects of American culture that are just disappearing. I'm sure young people today aren't even aware that there is such a thing as cross-country buses. You know what I mean? It's kind of funny to see. It makes me think of the show Route 66. The original, not the sequel. There was a sequel to Route 66 in the 90s. I think it only lasted like a dozen episodes. And it was a sequel because the one person in the same car was supposed to be the son of Todd from the original show, I think. But yeah, the idea that you could drive around the country and work odd jobs and just experience American culture, which is what Route 66 was about. You could really do that in the 60s. Hell, you could still do it in the 80s. You can't do that anymore. You can't do anything like that anymore. You can drive around and experience what's left of American culture on your own dime, but you're not picking up odd jobs all over the place. That's not going to happen. That whole like hobo lifestyle, if you will, is just gone. It's gone. That's a shame. This is an article from Newsweek coming up. I thought this was interesting. I thought this was an interesting article, and I'm surprised to see Newsweek covering an article like this, because they usually pander to these crowds. It says drag is never appropriate for kids. And they make a point to highlight that it's an opinion. But again, this is not an article that I expect from Newsweek. I won't show that picture too much. And this person writing this article, and I guess that's Chad Felix Green. And he goes on to explain that he loves drag, okay? I have done drag, so he is a drag queen, or has been. Many of my favorite celebrities are drag queens. If you asked me a decade ago what I thought of, say, RuPaul sashaying into a library in full sparkling evening gown glory to read a popular children's book to kids, I would have said it was hilarious. RuPaul's Drag Race did for drag queens what Will and Grace did for gays in the 2000s. I never saw Will and Grace. I never watched RuPaul's Drag Race either. I would argue most Americans can name a favorite drag queen at this point. I can't. I do not have a favorite drag queen. I don't like drag queens. I'm not entertained by that. But anyway, getting back into the article, I'm not trying to dissect it too much yet. But something has also changed in how Americans see drag. Drag queens went from a favorite gift, or GIF, excuse me, to add to a particularly sassy tweet, to the manifestation of everything conservative Americans fear about alphabet activism, especially towards children. It might seem easy to dismiss these concerns as an overreaction or even as an expression of bigotry, but conservatives are right about this one. This is why I'm surprised Newsweek is doing this article. Again, they typically pander to this. The art of drag relies on exaggerated sexuality and female stereotypes. Drag queens, through dazzling performances, over-the-top humor, and a cultural dedication to irrelevant commentary, have long acted as a release valve for the alphabet community. They could say and do things that others would never dare to express, and their unpredictable and provocative personas have long kept audiences on the edge of their seats. With careful inflection, a hand on an over-padded hip, and a wink, a drag queen can speak truth to power and make them laugh. This, however, has always remained within the private walls of adult entertainment, and for good reason. Drag queens take on the most absurd, sexualized elements of female stereotypes and gay culture and add a few cans of hairspray to make it even bigger and bolder. They strut around on stage and without a moment of hesitation or shame unleash epic poems of intentionally offensive obscenity, all with a smile and a sense of style no audience can resist. I disagree. I can resist it. I can't stand that kind of entertainment, personally speaking. To the point, and this is where you get to the meat of the article. Although many have argued that charisma can be redirected into child-appropriate entertainment, education, and advocacy, the reality demonstrates otherwise. Drag queens can't turn it off. Whether in front of a cheering crowd in a gay bar or a room full of kids at a library, the performance does not change. They cannot translate the magic so many of us enjoy on stage to something children can understand. Worse, far too many have chosen to disregard the concept of appropriateness altogether, performing dance routines, wearing costumes, or portraying the same bombastic and overly sexualized characters in front of kids as they would in front of adults. And the reason I'm wearing this, or reading this, is because it needs to be said by someone in the community in a format where people will see it. And that's what this is. This is a person who's in that community, who has been a drag queen, in a Newsweek article saying it needs to stop, it's inappropriate. This is something that's for adult entertainment. You should not be showing it to kids, because the people who do this don't know how to stop, and they don't know how to turn it off. And Urban says, what's the difference between a drag queen and a drag commoner? A drag commoner is what they really are, and a drag queen is what they look like on television. Because if you see most cross-dressers in real life, they look terrible. But they're supposed to look exaggerated, but some of them are so over the top, it's almost repulsive. Frankie says, no background checks and references required. But I appreciate, I don't care for the community. I don't. I have no interest in alphabet community. I don't find drag queens entertaining. I would not want to go to a show like that. Whatever. Because he says everybody can name a favorite drag queen in the article, whatever. I can't, because I don't like any of them. I think it's inappropriate. I don't like it. And again, that's opinion. But like I said, someone from within those ranks needs to be the one saying, this is wrong. You shouldn't be doing this in schools. You shouldn't be doing this in libraries. Little kids shouldn't be rolling around on the ground dressed like women, having dollars thrown at them. That's what needs to be said by someone within their own community. And they are correct. It is inappropriate. Hell, I think it's inappropriate as adult humor. ARN says Deuteronomy 22:5. And just to pull it up, just to clarify, it says women must not wear men's clothing, nor a man wear women's clothing. As a man or a woman, yeah, you're not supposed to project yourself as the opposite sex. You are correct, ARN. And I wanted to pull that up so I could read it correctly. I kind of knew we were going there, but I don't always remember where things are in the Bible, but I'm good at concepts. So I'll take it. But yeah, that is true. That is very biblical. You're not supposed to project yourself as the opposite sex or try to convince anyone that you're the opposite sex. There's a big difference between modern drag queens and cross-dressers and transmogrified people and the Three Stooges dressing like kids or little girls. You can look at the Three Stooges and see they are clearly not women. And the joke is that other people in the show are fooled. With these people, it's an entirely different set of circumstances. And Urban says, seeing the makeup reminds me of illustrations of monsters in kids' scary fairy tale books. They no longer look like classic cabaret type performers. They just look evil. Sorry, not sorry. I know what you mean. It's too exaggerated and it's too over the top. It's, and they're doing it for attention. But rather than go in your little hole somewhere or your little club or wherever you are and let people come to you if they want to see that, you have to try to force everybody to look at it. I don't want to see it. I don't want to see that. I don't like that. I don't approve of that. I don't think it's appropriate, even for adults, especially not for children. Especially not for children. It's too much, and there's too much of that culture that seeks to inject itself into children's lives. And again, going back to my experience with the Boston Phoenix newspaper and the interviews that I did for John back in the day, John the cross-dresser, they used to call him. I'm not kidding. That everybody in the interview process was molested in adolescence. All of them. And I can't imagine that there isn't still some type of a connection or a problem in that regard. And it absolutely confounds me that they can't see that there's a problem or a connection. And you want to work with kids? You know what I mean? And then they'll tell you they were born that way. And it's like, no, you were molested when you were 9. You don't remember how you were born. I don't know. That's a whole different topic of discussion. But with that, I'm going to go ahead and start wrapping things up. We're at the top of the hour. Again, this is Coffee Talk, and you can find me on YouTube at Coffee Talk Live or Prepper University, as well as at Coffee Talk Chat on X, formerly known as Twitter, and fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and Friday at noon. Special thanks to DH for making a donation to the channel today. Very much appreciated. Goes a long way towards helping us out with our shelter pets. And as always, hope that you got something out of the conversation. Hope you all enjoyed that. And I appreciate you popping in today. And hopefully you will make it again tomorrow.